right, everyone, let's get started. So I'm going to do really quick. You can see my screen, right? Okay, cool. Awesome. Sweet. Okay, so just want to remind you before we get started, in the participant panel, you can click on go slower, go faster, and all that. If you need to let me know, there is time for questions, and we have time for you to participate too. So get ready to type or talk. Okay, so let's get started. Things you think you know about React, number one. And I say number one because I feel like this will be the first of many in this series. There's just so much to unpack. So first, a little bit about me. My name is Justin Punzalan. I've been programming since 2015. I'm currently a senior dev at Mastery Coding, and I'm a part-time instructor at Camp. If you're from Camp, shout it out in the chat. That'd be cool to see. And it's also my second time here. So thank you again for the Mintbean team and community for having me back. You can find me on _puns. I add everybody. So yeah, say hi to me over there. And but before we really get into it, let's talk about what we're going to be doing here. What are we talking about, right? So since it's about what we think we know about React, I think it's important to talk about the brief history. Not really brief. It's been out for like 7-8 years now. But we'll talk about the history of React. We'll do a nice concept check and dive deep into those things, like why we use keys when we map, like why is React DOM in our package JSON, like even though we don't really need to import it, stuff like that, and just how do we keep up with all this stuff. There's so much stuff going on all the time, and it's important to know like how to filter what's the important stuff. So audience participation is encouraged, like I said earlier, and there is time for questions, so just ask it in the chat. Okay, so history of React. Let's go over a quick summary. So this is the part where I want y'all to participate. So why was React created? Just don't be afraid if you don't know the answer with full confidence, but just drop in the chat. Let's see what you think. Facebook did it. Yes, someone at Facebook definitely did it. But let's like why? Not who, but why was it created? Someone just got bored maybe there. They're like, I want to make React. Okay, that's a good answer. Make sites more seamless, better serve stuff that other frameworks can't do. Okay, yeah. So it was really put out in like 2013, which I'll like push out later. But back then they were like it's a completely different landscape for web dev. It's getting there. Yeah, yes. Kenneth is pretty there. It was to solve a front end problem. They were using like a lot of like, they didn't have this frameworks like this before. So they made this, or one guy made this in particular, who I'll talk about, to help maintain this super large project. So yes, update info from the DOM without needing to refresh the page. That is also a valid answer. So there's more than one correct answer, of course. So yeah, thank you for participating in that. There will be more questions, but it's a pretty cool thing to talk about. So just ask your friends to see if they know. Okay, so for what I found here, it's like the main thing was just like reusable components. It ensures design efficiency. Each thing can be separated into their own bits of logic, and it enables a consistent look and feel. Back then, they actually would template each page out, but they wouldn't have components. So it was pretty game-changing to have this concept of components versus having templates. And then reactive updates. Reactive updates, maybe this is why it's called React. I don't know. I kept trying to look at why it's called React, but I couldn't find anything. So my best guess is they would advertise this thing before called reactive updates. And what this is that whenever you make a change, or whenever something's changed on the DOM or the virtual DOM, or whenever your render or return runs in your components, it doesn't actually return like the HTML. It just returns this the difference in the DOM, and it tells it how to update. So that part of reactive updates is that it doesn't update the whole project, or I guess the whole DOM. It knows only it knows which specific parts of your web page have changed. So it's only reacting to those changes rather than as the application as a whole. And they had this thing of learn once, write anywhere. It works on server and client side. So like if you were to take out the React DOM part, you could also sorry, you could also export these React things that you make into like strings, other than just like HTML stuff. So it's just they have this big thing about no assumptions on the rest of your technology stack. So you can like really plop it in anywhere, and that's why it's really not really even a framework; it's a library. So all this stuff is directly taken in part from like their actual blog post about why they created it back in 2013. Things have changed, of course. So it's this is and it's a good place to plug it in. That everything, all these things I find here that I put on here are in the speaker notes. So I'll be sharing this slide later, but I cite all my sources, so you'll know to find it there. So here's finally the timeline of React, okay? And there's a two-part thing right here. So we start actually, I know it said that 2013 is like when it took off, but really 2011. So Fax.js is born in 2011. And some of you are like, what's Fax? Do I need to know this? No, you don't need to know this. If you go on Fax.js, it explicitly tells you don't use this, use React, it's much better. But Jordan Walk created the early prototype of React called Fax.js at Facebook at this time. And it was really like the earliest prototype of React. It had stuff like instead of making each page like an HTML document, everything was an object, just like how it is now. So that was his prototype. And then in 2012, the actual React project is started internally because Facebook was like, hey, we need our Facebook ads stuff is there's so many features and we're getting caught up because they were so big into the HTML5 at the time. It's not bad. It's just that they are making everything just like that. So yeah, Jordan comes along and he's like, okay, I learned what was wrong in Fax.js. Let's make React. So they make React, and then they realized that at this time too, in 2012, Instagram gets acquired by Facebook, which is probably like it's considered one of the best deals ever. And I think it now makes about 40% of Facebook's revenue. So I think in hindsight, it was one of their super good decision. So, but with that being said, Instagram wanted to inherit this React technology, but Facebook didn't have the resources at the time in 2012 to make React what it is today. So they're like, we need to open source this. Yay, open source. So in 2013, Facebook introduces React at JSConf US, and it was a mix. Half the people really liked it, the other half didn't like it. So in order to get people to like it more, they actually decided in 2014 to add in developer tools, the hot loader, and push out a new text editor, which is Atom. So they were just trying to get a bigger following at this point. So it wasn't really, though, until 2015 that we got a stable React build. So at this point, Netflix and Airbnb have adopted it. And that's a big thing because they're big pushers of the community. And at the same time, 2015 is such an important year because React Native, GraphQL, and Redux are also announced. So the first time people heard about it was like 5 years ago, and they've come so far. Netflix and Airbnb, they don't really have direct stuff on like any React documentation that says that they jumped on board there, but from stalking their Twitters, they actually say it, that we are now using React. So that was really good because then it helped get more people on. So in 2016, they brought on the error code system. So React got super popular after Netflix and Airbnb like shouted out and everything. So, and also the error code system's released. So sometimes when you get a bug, you have like a code and you click on it, and it takes you to the React site and tells you what went wrong. And then in 2017, I actually thought this was always there, but Fiber came now with Fiber. We got fragments and the Fiber architecture is added and open source. So like Fiber is not this thing that we really touch, but if you haven't really dove into it that much, it's just this thing that helps us do rapid updates. And that's as much as I'll get into it. And now there's just so much more. We have the hooks, the context API, we have suspense, and many more additions. And if you notice, like all these things are not really breaking changes. They're just things that are gradually added, and they're all opt-in, which makes it really great. So here's the timeline of React. I hope you found it useful, but there's a big takeaway from this. It's like, is the history important? Not really. It's really not, but it's good to know the reasoning over memorizing certain rules and syntax. So, I mean, each of these years could be broken up into specific months. So if you have time, it's fun just to dive into it, just so you know, like, why they made certain decisions. But now let's get into the real meat of this presentation, which is the knowledge check. Okay, let's test what we know. And there's going to be a couple things I'm going over here. So why is the React DOM in Create React App? everybody. So you can unmute or message in the chat. So this is usually something that is in our dependencies. And, when I was first using it, I was always like, I never import React DOM. Why is it there? And why does it always have to be the same version as React? Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, Ro, I guess I don't think your app cares if you feel like it or not. So let's see. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So the virtual DOM. Yeah, partially yes. Yes, that's a big part, Kenneth. There's like a specific phrase here I'm looking for, but okay, I'll give it a couple more seconds. Coupled. Yes. Okay. Yes, that's also important. It was important. Yes, and that's partly due to the history of React dynamic programming. Yeah, these are all really cool answers. Okay, so here we go. So they actually used to be coupled, but they were decoupled. Like, I don't know how to say your name, Bernie. So yeah, they actually used to be together until React Native came along. And it's really to keep it separate so that React is only responsible for the source of like how to have the components, states, and props. All that code stays in React. However, React DOM is the glue between how React interfaces with the actual DOM. So the reason why there's React DOM, there's also a different one for React Native and stuff, because like they need to be, it's the middle thing that helps, that tells React like when things change. So like all of you were pretty much right here. So it's like whenever the DOM changes, the React DOM will actually handle these changes and then feed it into React in a way that it can take it in. So that's really, really cool. So I hope you got something out of this one. But here's the next one. So like, why do we need keys? It's something we've been taught since the start, and even in many tutorials, they tell us to use the index. Excuse me. So can anyone answer really quickly? Why do we need keys? Or maybe even if you want to share what type of keys are good. Uniqueness. Yeah, uniqueness is good. Unique identifier. Totally correct. We're going to get pretty deep in this one. So, yeah. Okay, so the key is so powerful, and it's something that's been there since the very start. And the main thing is that, the identifier is important, and it should be unique amongst its siblings. It doesn't have to be globally unique. But according to React themselves, it helps identify which items have changed or added or are removed. The keyword, it's not in their quote, but it helps is important because if you don't include the key, it handles it a different way, which I will actually talk about. Lists are actually also performant heavy, believe it or not. It's hard to notice with we're kind of spoiled with our nice laptops and fast internet, but most of the world doesn't actually operate on that, So, and using index for key can actually lead to unpredictable results, as I'll show you in a little bit. So they're performant heavy. I've never heard of that before, right? So list is and then starting at the end. I know this is pretty text heavy at the end, but on the left, but I'll do my best to explain it. So this example list right here has, it shows this element third. Okay, third being added to the end of the list. So pretend these are two different, pretend these are the same list, but I'm appending this third li, okay? So since they don't have keys, what this will actually do is when I add third, React will go in and compare this tree. It'll compare it and go, okay, first, okay, so this didn't change. I'm not gonna re-render that. Second, okay, this didn't change. I'm not going to re-render this. And then it's going to go third. Okay, there's no thirds. Okay, so I'm only going to push third. I'm not going to re-render this entire UL. I'm just going to add this li. Okay, and please ask me questions at this point. So if you look here, it says doesn't mutate every element in this case. I'll get into that more, but just think of it this way. When it updates, it updates it on the children level. So it's, if the UL updates and it sees that most of it, these two are the same, it knows actually to insert a new one. So instead of mutating each one, and I'll show you why this is important. So this is actually the best way if you're not using keys, or actually, I mean, sorry, the default way if you're not using keys. Okay. And so this is for it at inserting at the end. So now if we go to the start of it, here, I'm going to show you, if you can see here, this is the same list, but it's actually adding Connecticut now to these list of cities. So, or I mean, is that a state? It's just random names. It's adding to the beginning of the list. So now React is actually not very good at this, and they even go as far as to saying on their documentation that it is a naive way of adding things. I don't know why they chose that verbiage, but it is what it is. So this example again shows it's adding at the beginning. So in this case, it's mutating every child in this case because the trees don't match at all anymore. So if you look at this first example I had where it inserts it at the end, first and first are in the same position. Second and second are in the same position, and third is the new one. So it knows to add just add that to the DOM. It doesn't tell it to re-render the whole thing. However, here, because we're adding Connecticut to the beginning of this list, it actually tells React to render this whole list over again. So instead of just adding one thing to the DOM, it actually adds these again. Why? Because this isn't how React compares things. It's if you look at it for spot, so Duke in the first position will not match up with Connecticut in the first position when it's new. Villanova does not match up with that in the second one. So it's just saying that these two are different. So automatically everything has to change and be re-rendered. Okay, so with that being said, how do we fix that? And we fix that with keys. Okay, so if we just do that, it's used to match the children against the original tree. Okay, so again, these are two different, these are the same list, but at different points in time. So it's at this point we're adding Connecticut, but React doesn't re-render the whole list anymore. It just knows to add it to the beginning of the list. Because here it actually knows that 2015, 2016, based on these keys, that they're not gone anymore, even though they're in a different position. They just moved. So it knows how to insert that. So it's not a big problem when you have like 3 LIs, but if you have something like a news feed and you have a list of different posts that are dynamically being added, that becomes very performant heavy. So key is just, it's so powerful and it's such an easy way to optimize things. And you don't really want to use index for them as much as you can. And I'll talk about that because it can actually mess things up if things are moving around. So let's get into it right here. So let's see that in action. So this guy right here, it's in the speaker notes. He dropped a nice thing. His name is Robin McCorney. So here, let me know if this is too small. So we know that when we're doing the mapping right here, right, we add the key, which is typical. So that's normal. But we have the option of using either the ID or the index when we're mapping it. Okay, and I'll show you the code right here. So. So here, this is kind of small. Here we have one that's using the index, and we have another one that's using the ID. Okay, and how that looks like, how it'll play out is this. So if I want to add an item to the beginning of the list, like in my example, okay, I'm gonna type 2, 3, 2, 3. So the bottom example is using ID again, and the top is index. If I click on add an item to the beginning of the list, it's gonna add it to, it's gonna shift the array, right? So if I click on this, you can see that the ID actually added it to the beginning, but the index one, it appears on the UI that it's at the end actually. But if we look at the actual arrays, it's really in the beginning. So here I can type 1 and 1, and if I were to inspect this here, use where's my reactive? Oh, it doesn't see that there's React here. Okay, that's okay. I will use my other example. So if you I have more stuff here too if you want to play around with it. Index as keys. Give me a second, everybody. Okay, so this is the official React example and why they tell you that it's bad to do this. So like if I were just to do name is, I'll explain here what I'm doing. So my name is Justin. So if I want to add something to the start, but I'm using the key as the index, if I click on add to start, as you can see here, like it actually doesn't add to the start, even though the index is supposed to be at the beginning. So that's one of the issues here of using index as key. If you have a dynamic list, it didn't actually add it there in the beginning. So, however, if I show you an example where it uses the ID instead as the key, it won't do that. So I'll say my name is, whoops, I don't need to do that. Justin. Okay, so now if I add something to start, it'll actually put in the start because it's not using the index. And the reason why for this is that when you're moving the elements around, it's gonna see it here. It's gonna see it like here in this example. It kept its key, so it's gonna be like, oh, you're not actually updating, you just moved. So it's React just thinks that you move things around rather than actually like React won't actually see that as a change, as opposed to like what we're thinking, which is an actual change. So here now it says like hello. So that's compared to the key as ID versus the key as index. When I add something to the start, it adds it to the end instead of the beginning because I'm not doing it right. But don't let it confuse you. Just know that you should always put a key. So moving forward, the next one is a rule here. So just from that article I took out, do you want to generate a unique ID for every time, for every item, and use it as a key when rendering the list? It's just a good thing to follow, but there are exceptions to it, of course, and it's also, I agree with him, so I put it on here. So if the list and the items are static, they're not computed or changed anymore, then it's okay. And also if the items in the list have no IDs, like if you're just mapping out some text, and also if it's never ever reordered or filtered, then you can use index as a key. Okay, so let me just go back here. You don't want to use your index here as a key because it's dynamic and it's changing. Okay, however, if I just have like a list of like names, it doesn't change. That's the case for not needing to use IDs. Okay, so here into the next thing, how does React handle some events? Okay, so this one gets pretty technical here, but the biggest thing I want you to take away from this is that all the events are really happening, are really being latched onto on the document level. Okay, and then React takes it from the document. Okay, so like all these events that happen will happen through like the document, and then React will take it and filter it. Okay, so that's like the big thing. So from here, how events are handled is that first, every single event is registered to the main DOM. Okay, and from there, the events are normalized so that they're the same across all browsers. I will get into this one more. Okay, but for example, when I have on click on Chrome and on click on Safari, we want that event object that comes out of it, like the e.target.value and all that. We just want them all to be the same, so that we don't have to code a different, we don't have to write a different set of logic for our different browsers. So after these events are normalized, there's this thing called the event plugin hub. Okay, you don't really need to memorize this, but there's just this one giant thing that handles every single event, and it knows to pass it to their specific the specific callbacks that you've set up. So there's a hub that goes through this information and dispatches the events. So I know this is super technical, so I have another slide to help me out with this, and I hope this isn't more confusing. But when I said before that it normalizes, the event arguments are normalized when things happen, That's this. So like when you do a click event, it just makes sure that the object will always look like this: Boolean alt key, number button, number for client X, client Y. So so all these things in that event object will always be the same regardless of the browser. Okay, so that comes from the simple event plugin. Okay, so you can see here the DOM, React Event Listener, and all this stuff here. It all passes through this thing called the Event Plugin Hub. So whenever you do an action or anything, it'll run through here. And when you have something like on click, okay, when you have on click, there's this, it'll actually know to fire this bit right here. So this thing right here, the on click handler, it's this part here in the application. So that application, it just knows that when this event is fired, run this function. Okay, so I just want to go through that again. So all events are registered to the main document, to the DOM, and then React goes and filters it. And after React filters it, it calls the actual method so that it's the same on all browsers by normalizing it. Okay, so with that being said, it's all pretty easy, right? I'm just kidding. I know it's tough, but don't be worried if you don't understand a lot of this. I'm just trying to show you that there's just so much and you can really dive into it. So you'll still be able to use React with or without this information. It's just, again, it's just really nice to know this sometimes. It's a good way to level up if you feel like you know React pretty well already, and to get deep into this, you give you perspective, like this stuff is only really like in the actual code itself. This is not in the documentation anymore. So it's just a fun thing to do. And it's good if you want to stop memorizing certain things and learning like why they're done instead. So like to learn the reasoning over it. So it's okay. Again, I hope it doesn't overwhelm you. It's just, we're all taught in the beginning to like just ignore or don't think about it too deeply. But I think we're all like some of us are getting to the point now where we can. So it's a good start, I would say. So how do we keep up with all this stuff? Let's talk about the different ways we can stay informed about these new crazy changes happening all the time. So how do you stay updated, everybody? What's the cool way that you keep up to date with React, or not even React? You know, it's just web stuff in general. Yes, build stuff. Yes, that's a great thing, David. Yeah, because if you build stuff, you'll run into more resources. Yes, practice, listening to lectures. Yes, yes, conferences. All really great answers. Yeah, podcasts are great. Syntax is a great one. At West Boston, Scott Talinsky. Yeah, totally. Yeah, these are all great answers. Yeah. So again, there's more than one. So I actually hope this is really helpful to you because I'm going to be giving it to you. So these are the resources that I actually use myself here. So I got 6 here. We got the React blog. Okay. So I guess who better than the actual people themselves to announce these things? They'll also tease different events that are coming up. So if you want to read the official updates, just click on this and then it'll take you to the blog and it'll tell you everything that they post. So super cool stuff directly from the team. Twitter is a great one too. If you want to passively stumble upon the latest React news, Twitter is the place. So let's say you feel like you need to be keeping up with this stuff more, but you don't really have the time. But if you're someone who uses Twitter, follow React.js and when you're trying to stay updated with your friends, you'll also learn something new about React hooks or something. So that's a cool one. And it's usually like a lot of people like Dan Abernov will usually tease new features there. Medium is so useful. Millions and millions of people use React at this point. Okay, so there's a good chance you'll learn something from someone's use case there. So typically people will post up their how they did something or their unique approach to React, or they'll even go in and clarify certain things. So if I just search React right here, on Medium, I'll see so many useful stuff like they created the same experience with React and Vue, and they wanted to compare the differences in performance. People constantly comparing the benchmarks because that's a big thing. There's just so many different things, like the React handbook. It has 28,000 claps, you know, so it's just such a useful resource that I think you all should check out. And then daily.dev is another good one. It's a good one if you want to passively expose yourself to latest tech updates. Whoops. So I think if y'all use Chrome or Firefox, actually it's on all of them now. Okay, so if you get it, it's this cool plugin where it'll actually just give you a bunch of coding resources on the fly. So pay attention to my screen, okay? When I make a new tab, okay, it automatically gives me all these different resources for coding, okay? So like, sure, I might not be able to read them all, but some of them might stick, and I'll open it up for like another time. So it's like React TypeScript cheat sheet. I'll leave that open in a new tab. So this is one of my favorite things. So daily.dev. If you check out any of them, please get this plugin because it just makes your Chrome experience a lot better. See, you can just get all these different articles and you can tailor it to what you like specifically. So like I could make it so that it only gives me React things. I can get it so that it only gives me Angular stuff, or even like things like 3D printing. It's just all things tech. It's like a nice compilation of the latest stuff here. Okay, so, and then we have, we also have the dev.2. I don't know how to say that, but this one's great if you want to answer questions, ask questions, answer them, and maybe even a couple articles. So this is a great resources. This is a great resource too because it's also heavily maintained. And then lastly, but not least, certainly not least, there's Reddit. If you prefer threads in a forum style, try that one out. But I see what most people use it for is not for like question asking about like technical stuff. Like it's more for like just general questions like why should I use React over Vue, or like is Next.js better than Gatsby and stuff, and then people like duke it out there. So it's pretty cool, and all of them have like really big communities. Okay, so and let me know later on if you use one of these and you think they're just amazing, or if you think I should add something here. Okay, so cool. And it's important to keep up with at least one of these or two of these because not only React, but just web is changing so much all the time. Like it used to be before, it's like 2 years ago, like everyone was all over Redux, and now slowly people are starting to say like, you don't really need Redux if you use context API, you know? So it just shows how much can even change in like the period of like 2 years. So here's one. When I said before that all the events happened through the document and then React will take it. So in React 17, they actually change it where the root element now will be the one in charge of handling the events. And the reasoning for that is because people might be running different instances of React on their project. And there's stuff like jQuery that also have event listeners that'll conflict with it. So it goes back to their main thing of like, you should just be able to drop it into any application and it'll work. So this is like part of it. So on the receiving end and the development end, we will not really feel this change, but it's just for like the fundamentals and stuff. It's just pretty useful to know if you want to stay up to date with this. So here's an example of a new change. Do you need to memorize this? No, it's not going to affect the way you code. So there's that. And then, so here's my strategy when I want to dive into things. Okay, I just keep a backlog of topics I want to dive into. So you can keep it simple. I like writing notes on my phone. Some of you might like using sticky notes or something. I actually do that back there too, if you look at my wall. But here you see, here's an example I made. I want to look into the React 17 candidate React Profiler API because I want to get into like optimization. I want to learn how to bake a pie, and I need to check if I'm drinking too much coffee. So these are the things I want to look into. So yeah, and if you feel like there's a cool list, if you like, maybe you might want to drop it here in the Discord and be like, I actually have a list of stuff I want to learn. Can anyone give me some resources for each one? Like this is like the place to do it. So with that, congrats, we made it. I hope it's inspired you to dive deeper into each of your stacks, not just React. As you can see, it's kind of a trip to get into it, but it's a good way to level up. Okay, so here are some potential future topics I'm thinking of. So like React Fiber is usually talked about a lot, or especially like if you're someone getting into like interviews and stuff, it might be useful for you. So I thought I'd call it untangling React fiber, virtual DOM and why it's important, the React call order. So before we had the component lifecycle, but now with like functional hook components, like we have a different sequence now that people don't really talk about too. So help me by reaching out. If you feel like this presentation is a little too technical, I can dial it down a bit too. This is my second time up here. So I'm all about incremental improvement. So I'd love to hear from you. Anyways, thank you. You can find me again on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, I'm here for it.